Well, I'm here because I heard about your conundrum that you're trying to solve, and nobody unites humans like a dog. So I'm here to unite people.
I've got two kids that are going to be voting in the next election. I have a daughter who happens to be going off to college, and they seem to think all of this is my generation's fault. And so I want to get involved and make sure that I'm doing my part and in turn teach them to do their part as they grow and become responsible citizens of this great country. No, but I might bring the bell. I bring the cowbell out.
I was the mayor of the small. Fred, I can't talk when you're talking because then I can't hear what you're saying. I'm Debbie Peterson, and I was the mayor of the small town of Grover Beach, California, and I uncovered lots of corruption that I wrote about in my book, The Happiest Corruption, that you can see behind me here. And I'm here because when I was campaigning, Fred was campaigning for another office with another individual, and I really support what they're doing. I know that they have a lot of integrity, and I'm always delighted to support any grassroots organization that's trying to make things better.
So, bro, I'm gonna tell you why I'm here, okay? It's because I'm trying to help our young millennials slash Gen Zs so we can move forward into the 21st century and elect great leaders. And we can't do that when we don't even have local elections broadcasted or anyone debating on video because it's so hard for me to find. So, I'm here to push technology onto these old folks.
Um, as a human, I don't think she can relate. I mean, when she got in as a senator, gas was $1 a gallon. A dozen eggs was 48 cents. The Dow Jones average was 3301. That's not 33,000. That's 3,301. And that year, Hurricane Andrew damaged Florida to the tune of 27 to 35 billion, which is so much more than her net worth that we don't want to forget that her net worth is like way above what it should be based on everything I'm seeing. So plus the largest shopping mall in the United States was built that year that she was elected first. The Mall of America opened its doors, and I think it did so that all these senators would have somewhere to go to spend all their money. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Well, you know, so with January 6th being such a big deal, the fact that she bowed out from even voting on whether or not to have a January 6th committee really concerns me. 29 years, wow, a lot has happened in 29 years. I have to agree with Liberty there in that I'm not so sure, even being one of the, I'll say, younger of the four that we're talking about, that her views and her experience could truly represent my children who are about to vote. Now, granted, theirs will be in the national election, but I'm not even sure. I mean, she's honestly, she's older than both of my parents. Yeah.
Well, Liberty, I'm going to be a female dog here, and I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say that I do believe being in the Senate is, or being any kind of elected representative, is a real job. I think it certainly helps to have had a real job before you're elected, because then, especially if it's a business job, then you can read a balance sheet, a profit and loss, and you understand budgets, and you can probably vote more effectively and evaluate things more effectively. So I'm going to disagree. I think she's probably holding a real job. The problem with that real job is, in order to continue to hold it, most elected representatives have to spend 30 to 60% of their time raising money to fund their elections. And there's something wrong with that. How do you represent us when you're just trying to fleece us? And so I would say, and I see you laughing, Fred. I would say that it may be a real job, but it's certainly not real representation. And it's time to get some young folks in there and to make some changes to the system.
Wholeheartedly agree. Angry Bro, how do we get
Yes, bro. Well, if there are young bros in Washington, I think they're probably 1/4 of each of the people in office right now, age, right? So she's 72, 3, 4, I forget, whatever. So I'm like, she's little over 4 times my age. And of course I think she has, you know, she's pretty old, but she has a real job. To be fair, you know. But as a bro, I'd like to see her talk with someone like me on a panel like this. So where's she at? Why is she not talking with the people? I want to hear what she has to say, right? We want to hear what her thought process is like now after more than 30 years, 20 years in office. I want to hear her. So let's let her speak. And if she sounds intelligent and she sounds like she's with it, let her stay. It's up to the people. People will decide if she should stay in there or not. But she's not coherent. Let's get her out.
I admire, support, and appreciate everyone who decides that they're going to become a civil servant. And I think we've seen over the past years that they really, most of them don't have a lot of privacy. And in most cases, anything they do is under, a microscope. But I think everybody, if food expires, if other things have limits, really to have a man who will be 94 when his term is done, it's time for him to go off into the sunset and live a life that is uh not going to impact so many people. I mean, I just can't quite, again, I keep going back to, what Angry Bro says, what my kids say. Is there any way possible? I mean, think about the things that he's been involved in. And then now he's been involved in the undoing of so many things that were done years ago, whether you talk about Roe v. Wade or whatever the case might be. I mean, he's seen some incredible changes. And I can't imagine that he really even enjoys his job right now, watching all the movement that this country made forward, and now he's watching it unravel again. And so I guess my question to somebody like him would be, you obviously were somewhere in the back when all this forward action happened. What are you doing now to stop it from going back to where we were 50 years ago? I can't imagine, and I don't know the man, so I don't want to have necessarily an attack on him, but I can't imagine that he's as active today as he was back when a lot of these great strides forward were made. I have to think he's a lot more passive today. And again, I think that all good things come to an end. And this just might be his time to ride off into the sunset and enjoy the last years of his life doing something for himself and his family, not necessarily trying to represent the people of the United States or his state in Iowa. Fred, I can't be as active as I was 10 years ago. So, and I'm certainly not as sharp as I was 20 years ago. So, it's just 41 years in office. You look at all the things that, needed to be done and they got done. I mean, he's recognized as a hard worker. He goes to the office every day. I mean, there's no question. Um, you know, everybody says that, he's been a really great, worker, but his net worth is crazy, right? I mean, he said at one point he was a $7.6 million. And now he's dropped down. These guys, I'm telling you, used to be like, oh, you'll never get rich going into government. Really? I mean, if this isn't rich, I want to not be rich too.
Yeah, I got $300 a month. It was a volunteer job. As mayor, I worked 40 hours a week, got no expenses, no benefits. So the $300 really didn't even cover my gas because we didn't get covered for that either. So I didn't go into it for that. I went into it for what I think are the right reasons, which is to represent my community, and so that's where I'm going to go with this old fella. It's up to his community. If his community believes that he's still got it, he can still represent them, and he's the best choice for that, then let them vote. I don't know the guy, and I'm gonna again be that female dog, Liberty. I don't want to leave you over there all by yourself as a pup. So I'm gonna say that sometimes you need an institutional memory. So let's let the voters decide if he's got a memory left, and take it from there.
Brad, I think you're muted. As an angry bro. Oh. Mhm. So I Mhm. So I think so he's probably had a long, great career, right? He's probably voted on really good stuff that people loved, really bad stuff people loved. Who knows? But I think I agree with Debbie. I think either he's doing a public service, but if he's doing something bad, which who knows, maybe he's a Democrat, right? So probably voted on some weird stuff, probably was a Republican back in the day, who knows? But he's probably a bit old now, probably a bit worn. I think I just heard my dog bark. I think it's up to the people, just like everyone else. But you know, I'd like to talk to him myself. We can have a nice conversation about life and about his whole run, and we'll just see how it goes there.
When I've talked to over the last year, several months, um, is not happy with the way things are. So the default thing of it, if they're doing a good job, you leave them in, isn't there. It's everyone's not happy with the leap show we're in. So how can anybody say they're doing a good job if everyone's unhappy with the state of affairs in the country? Debbie?
Well, I have to agree with you. And the question is who's doing a good job or not doing a good job? Because at the end of the day, we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. And if we, the government, our government that belongs to us, don't like the way it's going, then we have some things we can do. We can go in there, get involved, pay attention, ride herd on the people we elect, make sure they're representing us, and if they're not, vote them out. And meantime, go in there, volunteer, and pay attention, and make sure that your money's going where it's supposed to go, into your pockets, or at least the pockets of the community who are putting it there in the first place.
On the same question, of course not. I feel like we need to pave the way for younger and more in tune humans to be senators and representatives, because we would definitely have better representation if, like it was intended. Those positions were never meant to be a career. And you can see why, because when they become a career, they stop representing the humans and their needs, and they start representing only like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the humans way up there at the top in the elites who can afford to lobby and pay for all of it, while the rest of us down here are simply getting taken advantage of. So that's my take on it. And I didn't get a chance to comment on Senator Grassley, but he's been in there 41 years. Do you realize that my great grandparents weren't even born yet? Because that's like 400 years in dog years. Think about that for a minute.
No, and I'll tell you, this is an interesting conversation, and I will behave and have full disclosure here. I am not somebody who has been real active politically, and haven't studied up on my local politicians. Um, I vote mainly, well, for a while I voted kind of along party lines, and then I've kind of shied away from that as well, because I now have a business, and so I have different interests than I had as an employee versus an employer. Um, And I find that there are a lot of people, even my generation, that don't really get as active. And I think now that we're all so unhappy with the way things are, we don't have a choice but to spend a little time and get familiar with the people who are representing us. Because, my dad always used to say, well, if you're going to complain, don't complain, go fix it. Right. So if you're not going to do anything about it, then just shut the hell up. So it's time that we either put up or shut up. And I think that we're at a critical point right now where it's time to get to work. And whether that means going out and campaigning to get the young people to vote, going into some of the underserved communities and making sure that they understand what they're voting for and against, I think it's really, really important that every single voice is heard.
So, my thoughts are very limited because I'm young, but I think there's a couple questions we should ask. Do we not want them in there because they're old? Or do you think we would have better representation if we have younger people in there? Would you rather have someone like me, who's really young, probably stupid, or would you rather have someone really old? So, probably stupid. So, are we going toward, is everyone just in their toddler years, huh? Everyone wearing a bib, crying, or should we look for someone in the middle? I think that's what we're all here to talk about as a bro. So I think Mitch McConnell is probably one of the more vocal out of, well, he's probably one of the more popular, right? He's a majority leader of the Senate. Shoot. Yeah. Minority now. So he's probably one of the more vocal. People can say that he's old and probably out of touch, but who knows? We have to talk to the guy. We got to see. Republicans probably like what he's been voting on. They probably don't. It just depends on risk aversion at that point. So I think that he may be old, but who knows? Maybe he still is in touch with it.
Well, like I said before, when you're in there that long, you're in touch with your own and your paid for special interest. You are really not, you're not possibly serving the people in general as a whole group. So, I mean, gosh, 1984, he was elected to the Senate. The original Apple Macintosh personal computer went on sale that year. What the heck? I mean, apples were 43 cents a bushel. And that was the first untethered spacewalk that year. So I think it's time to, let's limit these people to, I would like to see them limited to just enough years where they can make an impact, but then they have to go back into society and live with the rules they make for us, which right now they do not have to do. Is it any wonder that we're suffering when they're in the Taj Mahal no matter what, because we've allowed it? 12 years and out, vote them out. That's over 100 years in dog years. We're giving them 100 years to get something done, then go and let somebody younger who maybe will represent all of us take over. And I don't know, it might work. I'm hoping.
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember that far back. I'm old. 84. Oh, yeah. I started a business in 1984. I was an entrepreneur in Great Britain in 1984. Um, But you know, my internet's a bit wonky right now, so I didn't hear who you're introducing or what you're introducing. But that doesn't matter because what I was really doing was some sums. I had my calculator out. You know, we some of us still use old kind of calculators. I certainly can't calculate in my head anymore because, like Angry Bro, I only use technology, so my brain doesn't calculate in my head anymore. And and so I was trying to calculate. Well, first of all, does anybody ever tell us how much these guys make? Because I want to know how this guy has a net worth of seven something million unless he started with it. But from everything you're telling us so far, all these folks in the Senate have huge net worths. So, how are these old white guys representing the rest of the community that doesn't have that kind of net worth? How do they have a clue when they've got this safety net that they vote in for themselves? So I'm going to rant and say, yeah, kick them out until they tell us what's going on.
Fair enough. I like the old white guy comment. So,
You resemble it.
for her views, so Kristen, bring your result. Your
It might be a grumpy grandpa you're going to talk about. I don't know. Well, I'll tell you, Debbie mentioned his net worth, and as of 2018, his net worth was 34 million. And it says here that some speculate it's more to be closer to 150. I really struggle to find that we don't have full disclosure on not only their incomes, but how they're generating this kind of wealth. His wife obviously had worked as the transportation secretary under Trump. So who knows what kinds of things happened there, except for they did find some instances where she misused her office to promote their family shipping business. So I find that to be interesting. I I like to get to know the people just a bit. I don't need all their dirty laundry aired, but I would like to know what other things is he involved in? We've had several people who've come out of office and they're on the board of a defense company that is overworking in Afghanistan, and they're continuing to make millions and millions of dollars. Well, how did they get on there? Right? What kinds of lobbyists are they in bed with when they're in these senator positions, or they're in a Congress position? Who are they marrying up to, and what are they doing to be self-serving for their future? And don't think for a minute that these people who are lobbying for their support aren't also helping them to raise funds to continue these campaigns, because the longer they're in office, the more support and the more they look the other way for anything that could be going wrong with these companies. So I have some huge concerns with people who serve for such a long period of time and generate that kind of wealth. There's just something that doesn't add up.
Well, 1978, elected mayor of San Francisco. Didn't get to the Senate till 92, but it didn't matter because now she's still there. Gas was 63 cents. A dozen eggs was 48 cents. The Dow Jones wasn't even 1,000, man. But the first Garfield comic strip came out that year, 78. Man. So my buddy Garfield, he made it big that year. Also that year, that was the year of the cult leader Jim Jones and his escapades after he left San Francisco. Now, I don't know how that coincides, but it tells you how long ago this was, if nothing else. And I think that's the message. 12 years and out. Prevent all this stuff. You can't tell me out of the 300 million people we have here, we can't find good people every 12 years. You can't tell me that.
Yes, she was. But I was negative 30 at that time. So that just tells you right there. But what I'm thinking is, I wonder if you will ever use the right pronouns, bruh. You introduced her as a guy, an angry guy, Dianne Feinstein. But it's fine, because I'm an angry bro. I'm not a nice bro. So don't worry. I like angry other bros. But, you know, here's the thing. Would we, as other young angry bros in the Senate or House, would we look for Dianne Feinstein as an angry mentor? Some people can argue that. Would we, us angry bros, go to her for advice? That's a good question. Or would she just, after the 12 years, go into special interest groups? Would she become a lobbyist? Is there more money in that?
They are old white guys, which is why I introduced her that way.
Nice try, Fred. Yeah, there's old white gals too. And um, yeah, my concern about Feinstein, I can probably talk obviously a little bit more about her because I'm from California. But my concern about Feinstein is we've really heard very little from or about her for many, 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 many years. And I'm going to start by saying, when you're in office, and someone said this earlier, it's free game. People can do satire, comedy about you. The First Amendment applies, but everybody can have their opinion and express it. So you take a lot of shit from people. I heard someone say that on the news last night. That was funny. So you take a lot from people, and so I don't want to just be in here bashing folks because they're easy targets, and then they might bash me back because I'm an easy target. But I would say that we're hearing about Dianne that she is maybe in such an advanced stage of dementia that you might even question whether she could still live alone. And so when you get to the stage where you can't really hold a conversation with people and you can't remember the contents of that conversation, if that information is true, if that information is coming from someone in her own party or someone who's worked closely with her, then I would be very, very concerned about that. And I would say that it is unethical not to step down and let someone move in who is competent.
We know,
Is it elder abuse?
I hope we don't have any of that going on, but I will say, as a teenager growing up in California, her name was always just like a household name, right? Everybody knew Dianne Feinstein was California. California was Dianne Feinstein. And so it's interesting that here we are talking about her because I had no idea how aged she was. I just really had no idea. And I'll say I think that she probably did some great things for the state. I think she probably did some great things back then for San Francisco. Um, I think that city today has far bigger issues to deal with. Um, but I have to agree with Debbie when your cognitive ability begins to be questioned. Um, certainly her family knows, and she knows if this story that snuck out is accurate. And if they know, and if it's true, um, it's really a shame if they haven't done something about it. I mean, really, all these years in being a civil servant, she owes it to the people to say, I no longer can effectively serve the people of California. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And, again, clearly money isn't the factor for them. I think it might just be the factor of having the power and the relationships and all the fringe benefits that come along with holding those powerful positions for probably all four of these people. Who wants to give up that kind of power? I wouldn't want to be under the microscope. I mean, that part sucks. And I mean, I always say, oh, they're tapping, everybody's following you on your cell phones. Who cares? I don't live an exciting life, right? It's not a big deal. They can see when I go to Jewel and Aldi and all these different places, big deal. But I think serving in office certainly ups the ante on every single thing you do. And I wouldn't want to live that life. I live a very busy life, but I wouldn't call it interesting to the public. I have to say, I mean, we're gonna do a lot of talking about many of these people, and at the end of the day, it all rests with us, the people. So everybody who's listening, watching, however you get your news, whether it be the good, the bad, or the ugly, you know, we have to take control of the country, and we need to make it what we want it to be. And if you don't get out and vote, if you don't cast a smart vote, it's almost as bad as not voting at all if you vote blindly, because you're endorsing people that maybe have very bad policy. So start opening the books, go online, however it is that Angry Bro and those get their information, and start making sure that your vote not only gets counted, but that it matters.
They need to add Instagram voting for elections. Make it easier for us angry bros.
No, I don't really have any last thoughts on this one. I guess I'd go with the folks here and say what we've said so far, which is if you don't like it, get in there and fix it, and do it first with your vote. But don't think that's going to do the whole thing. That's just the very beginning. After that, you've got to get in there and watch the people you voted for and make sure they're doing their job.
Doing their job. Wow, how bizarre.
I only say that, do you think the current group of senators and reps are trying to unite us? Doesn't feel to me like they're representing our best interests. I don't even get cost of living updates on my treats. So we should all unite as Americans, human and dog alike, to move the country forward in a positive way. Let's do this together.